Hello from Board Developer. It's Business Ahas, a show about the eureka moment that launched you into the next level of success. I'm here with your host, Jim Hayden, and I'd like to introduce our amazing guest this month, Park Howell. Park Howell is an accomplished entrepreneur, author, and brand specialist. After running successful marketing campaigns for multiple businesses until 2016, he transitioned away from his ad agency into the business of story, full-time. His passion is using storytelling to humanize purpose-driven businesses, especially challenger brands and their sales teams. Using his knowledge in music composition and theory, he excels in consulting, teaching, coaching, and speaking on the applied science and bewitchery of storytelling. His goal is to help leaders of purpose-driven challenger brands and their people excel through the stories they tell. We need to hear his business aha. Take it away, Jim.
Oh my gosh, Danny, thank you so much for a great introduction of Park. And Park, I guess I understand this last weekend you had the opportunity to experience the Nutcracker up at NAU. And God, what a blessing to be able to see so many young performers do such a great job in our holiday season. And I'm so glad that you're enjoying the Northern lifestyle. I see that your attire is fitting now for the being the lumberjack now up in Flagstaff, right?
Well, hey, I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, so I've got that lumberjack in me to begin with. And in fact, Jim, I can't even tell you how many cords of alderwood I cut as a young man in high school and college. $50 a cord back then, and it paid for a lot of stuff in my life. So this is very comfortable for me up here.
Very good. Great to hear that. And as I think you all know, I don't know your aha moment, and I'm very excited about today. Park, I've thoroughly enjoyed getting to know you better over the course of the years that we've known each other, and your storytelling, no pun intended, has really struck a chord with me and our team. And I think as a result, we have business aha. So there's one little quick aha for you is that this actually exists because of something you inspired into Carrie and I. So for that, thank you so much. And with that, I'll introduce both of our co-producers, both Carrie Sleazer and Danny Kahn. And so Park, I'm excited to hear about your business aha moment. I can't wait to hear what it is. I know there's this bated breath. So with that, Park, the stage is yours.
Well, thank you so much for that. And it's an honor to be here. I grew up in the realm of playing the piano, music, and I always thought that I would maybe be a producer one day. And I studied that in school. I did a little bit of producing, concert producing and so forth when I graduated, but didn't really enjoy the cast of characters that I had to hang out with in Seattle in the business realm. And so I went into advertising and marketing. And I thought this would be the best way to really employ what I call creative commerce, being able to build businesses, but using creativity at the heart of my career. Ended up moving to Phoenix, Arizona, and started an agency down here in 1995, Park & Co., and I ran that for 20 years. And pretty much I thought my career was on course. Things were going well. We built a very nice dynamic agency. I met my wife, Michelle. We had 3 kids here. But then along came digital media. And I was perplexed by it. I didn't quite understand it, what it was going to mean. And honestly, Jim, I felt like as social media took over and the tyranny of digital social media, that it kind of sucked the life out of creativity in advertising as I knew it. So I was pretty much a traditionalist. TV, radio, print, outdoor, direct mail, where our companies, our clients, own the influence of mass media. And as you all well know, social media turned that all on its head. The masses had become the media, and I felt like communication really suffered. Yeah, I started Park & Company down in Phoenix, Arizona. It's very much of a traditional ad agency because that's what I grew up in and built my career on. So TV, radio, print, outdoor, direct mail. And I really felt like we could be creative in that realm. And when digital came in, I think it really hampered the creativity in our world. It became just blasting content at people without a lot of thought into that content. My aha came in early 2000s when story just started creeping into the vernacular of business. And it's like the universe hit me upside the head. And I said, there's something to this. Why else is it just emerging now? And I started looking into it a lot more. And I found this really interesting intersection between what I had already known. So I studied music composition and theory and communications. And now I found myself studying story composition to make communications even stronger. And I was very fortunate. Our middle child, our son Parker, was going to film school at Chapman University in Orange, California about the same time. And Jim, I said, hey, send me your books when you're done with them, since I'm paying for them, because I want to know, what do they teach you to be a competitive storyteller in the most competitive storytelling arena in the world, Hollywood? And that's when I found The Hero's Journey. Joseph Campbell created the story cycle system. And that was the big aha moment where I'm like, this is it. This is the answer to how to go back to human communication that actually connects with people. And so I really spent the next 10 years with my agency building that out, studying it, using it for brand story development. And then, Jim, a really interesting thing happened that had never happened to me before. Clients started coming to me, and not just to do the brand development work, but to teach their people how to be able to tell this story better, and using some of the story philosophies and the frameworks that I had been learning. And I found that I absolutely loved coaching, loved teaching way more than running an ad agency. And so I literally in 2016 pivoted away from Park & Co., started Business of Story. And, now I consult, teach, coach, and speak worldwide on the power of story for leadership development, sales development, marketing. And that was my aha when I came across The Hero's Journey and said, that's the answer right there.
So when you read the book that Joseph Campbell wrote, what in the book first struck you as, oh, and by the way, this was a book that your son had in college.
Yeah, A Hero with 1,000 Faces, which is really, really tough reading. So I'll tell you right now, Jim, I did not make it through the first third of that book. Where I started studying with all the ancillary interviews that Joseph Campbell did. And one of the best books on the subject comes from his Bill Moyers special on PBS. And I followed that as one of the most purchased PBS shows since, was the 6-hour interview session with Campbell. And it was just something that immediately struck me when I learned about The Hero's Journey. I mean, I'm talking in a flash. Now, remember, I am a brander by trade. So I have to take complex information on behalf of customers and clients and boil it down to its very persuasive simplicity. So I was already built to kind of take this complex model of The Hero's Journey and go, wow, this is like an architecture for business communication and humanizing a brand, and have just dove into it headlong and took that complexity and simplified it now down to what I begin all of my training work with, and that is the and, but, and therefore. These 3 words that represent the 3 forces of story of agreement, contradiction, and consequence. I start there and build on that framework up through the 5 primal elements of short story into the 10-step story cycle system. And it so captivated me. It literally plucked me out of my career. And I started all over again at the age of 55 with the Business of Story.
So the aha moment I heard, first of all, Park, was the book. And I think the question before the question is, so you got the book because of your son, because he's in college. And then the next aha moment for me is that you made a transition at age 55.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. And it's a big deal because you didn't necessarily decide that I'm going to completely change careers. You truly pivoted to be able to go with something that called to you as a calling, as opposed to that traditional marketing or branding you did before, right?
Yeah, and a lot of people, I had a couple brothers say, what the hell? Why are you shutting this down? Why didn't you sell it? And I said, well, because if I sold my agency, I would have been strapped to whoever bought it for another 5 years and kept running it. I would have been 60 then and didn't feel like, I would have had the off ramp and the momentum I needed to start something new. So I still represented some of my clients in that transition for a couple of years. That helped, but it was an absolute calling. It's like, I'm not happy doing what I'm doing. and I got one last shot before, retirement, I guess. What do I absolutely want to do? The other thing that happened in all this is Arizona State University came calling out of the blue. My good friend over there, Bruno Sarda, said, we are starting a master's program in sustainability leadership, and there's going to be 4 professors, and we need someone to teach the communications standpoint of it. And all the work I've been doing at Parking Company was, green marketing, sustainability, social cause work. So it was right in my wheelhouse. And I said, well, I've never taught in my life, let alone a master's course at a major university like ASU. They said, no problem. They're looking for, professionals that can bring that outside expertise in. And so I did it, and I created a curriculum, and I taught it for 5 years with executives around the world. And Jim, and I was still running Parking Company at the time. And that was my last 5 years of running Parking Company, because I said, I want to do this. I don't want the headache of trying to run an agency anymore, trying to figure out this digital world. It wasn't in me. I wanted more creativity and communication. The biggest need I see today is to help leaders of all ages do a better job of connecting like we are here and in person through the stories they tell. Again, I talk about the tyranny of social media and digital, and I say that because it so consumes our life. The impact of Facebook and what they're doing, the overreach in these areas. And I think it really degrades trust. And that's what we need more now than ever for our societies, for our business, for our leadership, is we need to rebuild those bonds of trust. And there's no more powerful tool to do that than with the stories you share with people sitting across from you.
That's fascinating. And so now, Park, as you look in the rearview mirror, it's been 5 years. You're now 60.
Yep.
What would you have done
Nailed
differently in this last 5 years?
I don't know, hindsight, I don't think I would change anything. I have been really diligent working on this. I've got myself surrounded by a terrific virtual team. So it's kind of my agency without having to pay them full time. I have studied my brains out on what's the next thing in story. Where do we go from here? What I would do, I don't know that I would do anything differently. It's been working pretty darn well. Now, that's not great for your viewers, because they're like, dude, I want to learn something from you. Here's what I've learned in that process, is you can't do it by yourself. You got to surround yourself with at least a couple top-notch people and then build from there. I am a huge believer in the 1099 economy. I think, folks can work on their own. COVID has proven that. And they don't have to be a full-time employee. And virtually every virtual person I have is not interested in a full-time gig with me. So that's nice. And really build out those relationships. The other thing I've learned, Jim, is it is really difficult to connect with clients and keep that client bond at a distance, because you don't get to sit across from them in a room. You don't go in and kill time hearing about their kid playing baseball before the meeting, shows up. We've got this distance now between us, and that is really tough. And the only way I know of closing that distance is through the stories you tell, and share with the people sitting across from you. I would like to learn how to do that better. And I think we all need to do that, because I don't think this is going to change anytime soon. I don't see a lot of in-person stuff happening in 2022. And that is really difficult.
It's fascinating. You mentioned a couple words to me that were, number one, I never heard before. And you said the 1099 economy. I know that's obviously it's a term that's now being used, that's a shift because of the pandemic, and what can cause because of a virus on changing the way that humans communicate forever.
Yeah, it totally has. And I've been doing some research on this, and the impact it has on us subconsciously. So, and this is the tricky part. And I really find story is the only anecdote or the only hack to it. So in one case, this proximity, the 4 of us are sitting on a screen, and really we're seeing shoulders up. If we are sitting in the room, we're being able to read much more of the body and so forth. So we have this proximity thing that our brain is going, what's going on here? And this is our primal brain that helped us navigate and survive the savannah, is sitting here and said, look, I'm not built for this. So I'm having a hard time reading the room. Number two, because of our bandwidth, and I've got some bandwidth issues up here in Northern Arizona, our voices get contract. That bandwidth gets reduced. And so some of the nuances that we normally would be picking up in a room, our brain isn't picking up, and the subconscious is, I'm not really sure what Jim means by that. We don't have that dimension that we can read into it. And then thirdly is the use of our hands. We try to be dynamic on here, but we end up looking into this camera. I don't even get to look at you. I've got to look at this camera so I look like I'm looking at you, and I can't read you. That all leads to this distance that I don't think any amount of virtual technology is going to replace. Therefore, the technology of a story, to be able to sit here and tell you a quick little gripping tale that can make a business point or that connection, is more critical now than ever.
Fascinating, because all those things you just mentioned aren't going to go away.
No.
We're not going to see body language. We're not going to see inflection. We're not going to be able to see the other noises that are going on, to be able to feel the person. But our connection has to be found in other ways. And I think when you said there's no more important time now than for people to capture their story and to learn what their stories are and share them with others.
Yeah,
it's very impactful. So what are those stories? And if you share them, that's what's going to impact them more than probably anything else.
Yeah, I do a lot of work with universities around the country, Stetson University, Dayton, University of Dayton, and so forth. And I just got a call, was working with a professor out at University of South Carolina. One of the themes that I hear are these young adults that are coming in, these students have a hard time being open enough to share their story. And if you follow any of the work of Jonathan Haidt, one of America's foremost sociologists, he's got a great book on this, Coddling of the American Mind. What we are finding, and I hear time and time again, Jim, is these young people are afraid to share their stories because they grew up with the tyranny of social media. They know what it's like to be bullied online. They've seen it. They know what it's like to be trolled, and it gets them, and totally understandably, survival mode. Let me shrink into my shell. Don't worry. You don't need to know that much about me. Let me just do my thing. And so we end up with this gulf of relationship because they are unwilling. And some of the work that we have to do, and it takes a few weeks to be in front of them, is to coax those stories out of them. And we don't even call them stories anymore because that freaks people out. We call them moments. Take us to a moment in time that surprised you, that your curiosity, much like your aha moments, took you down a path that you did not intend to go down, but then lit you up. I mean, just like, wow, this is so incredible, and lit some passion in you about a subject. Let's start with those moments because nobody can argue with those moments. They happen to you. They're true. And then let's build on the next moment from there. Next thing you know is you've got a series of stories or scenes in your life that help you create this overall narrative that you can start sharing with people for those connection stories.
That's fascinating. And as you speak, I think that when you say those words, I hope that people are starting to listen and start thinking about what are their moments in time. So I'm going to tell a very quick moment in time that does involve you, Park, and involves you, Carrie. And then after I share that moment, what I'd love to do is put both Danny and Carrie on the spot and have them share a moment as well. So I'm going to give them a minute to think about it. But no, not me. I'm not going to do it.
Oh no.
So the moment in time for me is Carrie and I had the opportunity to visit with you, Park, in your office in Phoenix before you moved to Northern Arizona. And during our visit there, obviously we noticed your piano.
Mm-hmm.
And before we left, I asked you to play. and you did. And that moment in time, I remember that it struck a chord with me because we saw a personal side of you that impacted me, and I'll never forget that. So thank you for sharing. So Park, for literally 30 seconds, would you play something for us?
I gotta see if this thing's up and running.
It's an organ,
my
right?
official Rhodes piano that I bought in 1979 when I was a senior at Buffalo High School. I drug it to Washington State University with me. I've had it ever since. It's kind of a little bit out of whack, but how about something like
Yay.
Would you hear that?
We did.
A little
Thank
zippity
you.
doo-dah, you know, doesn't it put a
Yes.
smile on your face?
And there's nothing wrong with that. And those memories are what people do remember.
Yeah, absolutely.
I genuinely appreciate that. Carrie and/or Danny.
So you're asking for our moments in time?
Just a moment.
Any
a
moment? A moment.
Danny, think of it like this: a moment that you can look back on that changed the course of your life. It informed you, and maybe it was probably a very surprising moment. You didn't see it showing up when it did.
I mean, it's almost like a business aha or something, but mine always goes to my family and I. We opened a cafe in 2013, and we had been working really hard and like making tables and doing all the painting, and it was very, solitary work where we're just building things. And then finally we opened the cafe and we have this ribbon cutting, and I was like, okay, maybe people will show up. And there was 50 people outside. It was the Chamber of Commerce, the Gilbert Chamber of Commerce, and then the mayor walks in. And that moment in time, I was like, we actually built something. Wow. Like, and that's something that came to my mind just now, just how incredible that felt to build something and have people see it, I guess.
So when you said, Danny, that came to your mind right now, when it popped into your head as being that moment in time that it didn't necessarily transform you, but it made you realize that something you worked so hard on actually has now come to fruition.
Yeah. And I think that also it had influenced me for my future behavior, where, okay, maybe instantly you're not going to have, satisfaction, right? But if you keep working and you work hard at something you believe in, then you be successful, right?
Danny, I like to always boil it down to one word for a story to get it really super focused. For me, in the telling of your story, that one word is possibility. And my question to you is, with what you experienced there, all the hard work, and then you had that aha moment of, wow, we did it. Does that help drive you through the tough days now when you're working and, man, it just seems like things aren't coming together? This is never going to work. Then you go, but the possibility is there if I just stay focused. And so it informs you as a young professional today.
Yes, exactly. It's almost critical. And sometimes I'll even look at pictures just to, if I'm having one of those days, like I'll look at a picture or maybe a memory. I like to draw. I actually doodled that scene in my head. I'll look at that and say, okay, like that, it's okay.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, that was nice. Very, very nice. Carrie, still no?
Okay, so I'm actually like a little embarrassed to say that the moment that comes to mind is actually a breakup. I went through a really rough breakup, but I think the rough part of it was right, after the initial breakup conversation, I had this aha moment of, wow, it's not even the breakup, it's that I've actually been really unhappy with my whole life, and I pinned all of my hopes and dreams on one person and realized like that was not healthy. So it was actually one of the greatest things that ever happened to me, because then I was able to, change my life around. I made some really big changes and realized I wasn't happy with the environment I was in, the relationships I had in my life. And it was actually one of the best painful experiences I've ever been through.
It's a big moment. Have you shared that before?
Um, Not quite like that. Like I don't think anyone's ever asked me that before, but like my best friend, like we've talked about it a lot. Like that was a turning point in my life of like, whoa, the breakup was so hard because I was looking at this life that I wasn't happy with. Um, and then she was with me in a lot of moments of like, okay, like I need to change this environment. I'm going to travel more. I'm going to do more things that I'm passionate about instead of just focusing on this one person, which wasn't healthy. So,
And it's probably fair to say that she might have been one of the biggest influencers you've ever had in your life, because she clearly has no filter.
yeah, she does not have a filter. So I always tell people, like, when I was teaching, and students would talk about their breakups or whatever. Someone once told me during that season that pain births promise. And so just holding on to the truth that like good things can come out of pain, really good things. And it was the most best painful experience I've ever had.
Wow. So Park, boil that one down to one word.
To one
Enlightenment.
word.
She was
Enlightenment.
enlightened. I mean, so number one, Carrie, thank you so much for sharing that vulnerable story. Who among us have not gone through a difficult breakup or have been rejected by a boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever?
The concept and idea of, is it appropriate or inappropriate, Park, to put somebody on the spot and ask them to think about a moment and share their moment?
It depends on the moment. I mean, how to what end are you doing that? I do it all the time in my trainings when I'm brought in, but I'm hired to come in and work with people on their stories. So that's the first place I start. I actually 4 years ago did a TEDx Gilbert talk on this very thing, and it was specifically for the 20-somethings in the room. And it was titled, Stop Looking for Your Story and Start Finding Your Scenes. And then the subhead, knit those scenes together and your story will find you. And so just what we did here with Danny and Carrie is just take us to a moment in time and start putting those together, and you're going to have this storehouse of amazing stories that you can share in under a minute with someone sitting across from you to make that connection.
Gosh, Park, thank you so much for sharing. I think that we got a fill of more than one aha moment. The first thing that struck a chord with me was always read, always learn. And if it wasn't for your son being in college and getting his book, and you reading that book and having your aha moment in 2016 at the age of 55, to be able to make a significant pivot in your business. Number two is what can those possibilities turn into? Danny, thank you very much for sharing your possibilities that would not have existed if your family didn't take a chance back in 2013 with your coffee shop. And Carrie, I wrote down pain births promise. And if it wasn't for the pain that you had in your breakup, we probably wouldn't be working together today. And I think that it absolutely is a very telling story for us to be able to share what those moments are in our lives. So Park, I can't thank you enough for your time today. And I think that when you have technology issues, and no pun intended, because you're in the business, you adapt and overcome, and you make the best out of it. You make lemonade, right? And we genuinely appreciate your time today. And I look forward with all of my heart to the next time we get to visit.
Well, thank you so much for having me here. And remember this one thing, that the most potent story you'll ever tell is the story you tell yourself. So make it a great one. Thanks for having me here.
Thank you for tuning in to Business Ahas, brought to you by Board Developer. If you enjoyed Park's story and can relate to his business aha moment, please be sure to like, subscribe, follow, and share. All the things we love to do. We'd really appreciate it.